we have a very important message for free-to-play players. The game is changing. When the Age of Fear starts, the economy is going to get a major overhaul. All different types of players will be affected. And interestingly enough, as we go to the blog post for the day, they're going to be explaining what is going to happen at those different pay points, especially when it comes to the free-to-play player. We're going to do our best to break it down, bring examples in, see how things have happened in the past, how that might affect the future. Very important information. There are definitely some wins here. There are some good things. There's also some losses, some things that many will probably be disappointed in. It's important to consider the information because we want to maximize our wins, minimize our losses. Information is the key to doing that. So let's go ahead and start breaking this down. Game economy update. Hello, commanders. We know that the game economy and resource availability have been the biggest issue on everyone's mind. We've heard the questions and concerns over the past few months, and now it's time for some, but not all, of the answers. The changes you have seen over the past months have been leading up to a fundamental redesign of Marvel Strike Force's game economy, going live on May 4th with the launch of the Age of Fear. This blog will break down why we're making these changes, what you can generally expect across the game going forward, and how these updates will impact different types of players across the community. Some of this is still in progress, and we know this will open up even more questions. We'll be there to answer as we lock in the remaining details in the coming weeks. No doubt you've noticed this is a longer video. There is a lot of information to cover, and we need to make sure we're diving in to help you understand what we need to do, why we're making these changes. We all want this game to be around for the long haul. Over time, inflation and legacy reward distribution have gradually widened the gap across the player base, and problems like late game players receiving rewards they can't use and early game players being unable to progress in their first weeks of gameplay. We can speak to that very briefly. I played a lot of accounts, right? I start a new account every year. I have my main account that I've been playing since launch. I start a new account every year to kind of keep in touch with that new game, mid-game experience. And yeah, there are some big problems with how we advance. They've tried to change a lot of that, but sometimes what happens is those changes get pushed up to the end game, and that's not stuff we really need at the end game. So that part I do understand. The resource scarcity you've experienced in recent months has been a side effect of interim fixes ahead of the broader redesign that we'll unpack in this blog. That 100% includes ensuring Marvel Strike Force is sustainable as a business. They got to make that money. But there are many things we're trying to achieve across the game. So they got to make the money. No harm in that. How does that change the game? Well, they want to address the long-term inflation that created uneven chase experiences, resource volatility, and progression gaps across the player base. Make player value and rewards clearer and more consistent across different levels of playtime, difficulty, and game modes. This is a really huge point. Many people may not realize it. This is a huge point. Right now in my new player alliance, we're having discussions about which characters to build. In my endgame alliance, we're having discussions about which characters to build. And sometimes, as you might have noticed, perhaps in your own experience, people feel very strongly that certain characters are important when those of us who have a little bit more experience know that those characters are not important. Or if you were to change your focus to invest in these older characters, you're missing out on building the newer characters, and you just get farther and farther behind. So there does need to be a much clearer path forward for how people should progress their account to do it optimally, or at least what the main suggestion is. And then as long as we have the right knowledge, we can make adjustments from there. Ensure players at different progress levels across the game receive resources most relevant to their roster, goals, and progression. Update the chapter store with more resource volume, increasing progression velocity, and offer paying players clearly defined periods of exclusivity for character shards. So there goes a point, something that we've probably seen. Newer characters, they have not been available for power cores. We recognize that one of the things that was trying to happen, they're trying to give spenders exclusivity with the characters. That's been the case since day one of Marvel Strike Force. Other things have happened that have made that advantage more or less significant. It looks like they're trying to stabilize it and make it consistent. Make the game easier for new players to understand, join, and enjoy. Huge point there. There's been a ton of work on the new player experience. But again, understanding what people are supposed to actually do is still an issue. Make progression feel more meaningful for players at different stages of the game. Excellent point. Hopefully we can see some progression. Again, one of the things I always notice with my new account versus my end game account is on my new account, it seems like something's always happening. I'm always putting on a piece of gear. I'm always leveling a character up. Even when the progression slows down, right, you can still kind of see that you're building something, it seems, every day or so. On my new player account, that's not the case. You build something and then you're just stopped for quite some time. And when there's no content to bridge that gap, it does get stale. Reduce instances in which paying players make purchases with a randomized element or an uncertain outcome. So hopefully it means they're getting rid of some of those cheap orbs, right, that you would buy, maybe get something. It's not even anything that you need to progress your account, right? Casino type orbs, loot box type stuff, not things that many of us like, but that's what happens in a gacha game. Now, as a free to play game, you should be able to play for free and have fun. If you choose to pay, you should feel like you're getting a premium experience for your money. These changes are intended to better achieve that balance. Let's go ahead and get into the changes. What this means for your gameplay. Introduction of purple L4s and L5 ions, gear tier 21, and gold to the limited chapter store. Those are things we need to progress. Those are going into the chapter store. More consistent acquisition of gold through daily objectives. More consistent acquisition of L4 training modules through Arena. That is a big change. Events become a key source of power cores in the Age of Fear. Another big change for right power cores. If it's not going to be Arena, now it's going to be events. Updated chapter store path for new character availability aligned with character tab behaviors. I'm not 100% sure what that means. I didn't ask the question because I was trying to figure out how to formulate it. We'll see what that means. Hopefully, ask more questions as we go on. Main and gear store now offer higher tier content. That's necessary. The gear store right now stops at teal gear. Again, if you're coming from behind, you're a mid-game player, you need a way to get into the crimson gear, especially to target that crimson gear and not rely on orbs. Introduction of T4s to Cosmic Crucible. Getting full teams will take more active engagement. Now, as a free-to-play player, this is a huge point right here. This is something we want to keep an eye on. Getting full teams will take more active engagement. We're going back, as we said, to the golden age of Marvel Strike Force. There's been good and bad with that. One of the things that happened back in the day is one of your main characters would be more difficult to come by. That was a problem back then because there was no release cadence. Now, at least there is a release cadence. If somehow we are not able to get a character during the normal free-to-play release, at least they'll be coming into farmability and we can bridge that gap. It will just take us longer to build the team. We'll have to see more about what that means. This will have different effects depending on how you play and where you are in the game. Here we go. Let's kick it off. Free to play. For free to play players, this means more predictable access paths to the resource needed to progress, even if total rewards are redistributed. For premium players, early access and acceleration should feel more valuable. That's something that I think the spenders really want. They want early access. That's what they're paying for. They want to get there faster and they want to be stronger. That makes sense. As a free-to-play player, I'm mostly interested, can I get a hold of the teams? This is the same. This is all right, so double slide, slight adjustments there. It looks like it didn't change anything. What this means for your gameplay, new and early game. For the new and early game players, this should make progression paths more relevant and easier to follow. If you're in the mid game players, the focus is on smoothing bottlenecks and making core resources more consistently available. The game, again, has changed. Newer players, right on my baby account, 2 months in, I'm at level 90. And if I would have been paying more attention, I could have been at level 100 inside of 2 months. Things start to shift. Right now, shop credits, I'm running out of those at an alarming rate. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what else happens. For the end game players, rewards should better align with where you are in the game with less clutter from outdated items. We got bold print here and underline. This is huge. This is probably the most important thing. If you don't take anything away from this, this is it right here. Harder adjustments will be around baseline expectations. Going forward, expect that engagement will mean even more to your progress. Getting full teams with only resource rewards will be the exception, not the rule. With decision making and use of chapter store and character shop more important. Team and character releases will build on each other and be more important to progression throughout the age. So if we get nothing else, this is the main point. You play to win the game, right? That's what it is. If we're not playing the game, we're not going to get what we need to progress. And even the things it says, from what I'm understanding, even if we do get the things we need to progress, it may not be enough to build out a full team. Free to play, that means we're going to need to pay attention to these resources. We're going to need to pay attention to the teams. Skipping teams is probably a bad idea. And we have to concentrate on what we can do. What we can do is probably target those reworked characters for sure. We're going to have to see more as we continue. Maybe one of the newer characters is not easily attainable. That will give us a team of about 4. The way the character kits read right now is usually you need 4 members to make the passive abilities and other things work. We're going to have to see how that goes. Okay. I have questions. I'm sure you do too. Let's continue getting into the information. What this means for your gameplay. We know that these changes will be a major shift in how the game is played, but they're a big part of what's needed to make all our new content and game mode improvements meaningful and sustainable across the entire player community. So they got to make the money. People want to pay for premium content. I get it. Again, on the free to play side, let's try not to panic. We're all going to be in the same boat, right? That's the thing. It's not that I'm going to be at a disadvantage and everybody else is still doing the same thing. We're all going to be in the same boat. So people that are more engaged, who are paying attention, will have the advantage. That's still a thing. That's not going to change. What is changing? Daily objectives. Starting with the new age, completing all daily objectives will be the most straightforward way to earn gold. Centralizing this in a feature that most players complete every day. Orange gear will be replaced by 1 million gold in the daily objectives, all clear rewards. Introduction of a new reward package specifically for level 110 commanders, replacing smaller, lower impact rewards like green gear, green ISO with gold. Battle pass points will remain unchanged. Gold is a universal bottleneck for all players, and addressing this here is our main priority. So during the anniversary event, it looks like they tried to restabilize the economy. They gave us gold and training materials that should help us level out what we needed to start again, right? It's on your market, set, go. We're kind of starting again with, let's say, the champions, right? Champions and daring warriors. Now it looks like we're going to get gold every day, which is cool, I guess, right? It's good. There'll be some type of a new reward package. We'll have to see what that actually means and what resources we have. Different game modes, arena. The arena will no longer be the primary source for power cores. Instead, this feature will offer L4 training modules to encourage players to upgrade and play with their favorite characters more consistently. So what's going away from the arena is chapter, credits, and power cores. That's a big change. It's a big change. We'll just have to see how it goes. We got to play arena to get our training modules. The good thing about what they're changing is it looks like there's lanes. This is how you get this. This is how you get that, and you know where it is. How it's going to work out, we're going to have to see. At least we know where the resources are, where we have to go to get more of what we need. This creates a more reliable way to acquire training modules for all player types. For players who relied heavily on arena for power cores, this shifts where those resources are earned. So I understand there's probably some outrage about the power core thing, but I think there's another more important item here. The fact that this is where the training modules are going to be, right? Power cores are great, but you need training modules to power your characters up. So the concerns that I have is what happens if you are in an arena shard where you're getting dog walked. How are you going to get your training materials? If you start falling behind, you need training materials to power up the characters to get ahead. But if you're losing, am I making sense? Does that just continue to snowball? Is there other ways? And we're asking, so please ask if you can help us with some of this stuff, right? How do I get back in? You got guys, people have a nihilist. They're going to be pushing us down. That just takes time, right? There will be a new arena team that comes out this year. The people that spend are going to have it first. They will be pushing us down, right? How are we still going to be able to power where's that equilibrium? Where's the equilibrium to where I can actually power my characters up? Or is this part of what we're talking about, that your daily contribution may not give you what you need to power up all the members of a team? Something to keep in mind. This resource is going to be more important. What's changing? Events. You'll see more power cores in Age of Fear events. More power cores. Cosmic Crucible. This PvP mode will now offer ability materials. What's going to be removed from Crucible? Gold, the training modules. They're going to the arena. Chapter credits. T4 ability materials are added in, and there still be Dark Diamond credits. This aligns rewards with a key progression need for mid and end game players focused on upgrading abilities. Again, the only concern that I have here, right? These are both PvP game modes where we need a resource to build our characters. PvP is a paid progression path. I'm free to play for the most part. Am I going to get pushed down too far that I can't progress my teams? And again, is that, we don't even know if that, in my mind, that's a problem. We'll have to see what actually happens. It may be less of a problem than we think, because again, we're all in the same boat. So it's happening to everybody. We're all on the same playing field. But, right, people, once again, that are in easier brackets, they're going to get more of the resource. People that are in harder brackets are going to get less of the resource. And without that resource, you can't power up your characters, meaning you're not strong enough to compete. Snowball effect. So that's one of the things I'm concerned about. Maybe we can get some more clarification on that. Blitz. Blitz will now primarily offer shop credits and early game orbs. Okay, so shop credits and gold are being removed from Blitz. We're going to get shop credits and orbs. Is that going to be something? Well, let's keep reading. This keeps Blitz aligned with early progression and maintains its role as a steady source of shop credits for all players. So I'm just wondering, does that mean that nothing's really changing with Blitz? Or if I do a Blitz attack, when there's no milestone available, right now I maxed out a milestone and I do a Blitz attack, will I get shop credits? Can I earn shop credits this way? That's a question that I have. How much grinding will be required to do that if that's allowed? I'm running low on shop credits on my early game account at an alarming rate because the progression of the game has increased, which is good. But I need currency of some sort to keep that up. I guess if I run out, then I just run out and my progress will slow. But it is what it is. But is this meant to be a way that I can increase that in my early progression? What's changing? Main store. Stuff that's available for Power Core purchase will be Gear Tier 20 mini uniques. So we have a different input than for Power Cores. It's Gear Tier 20 mini uniques. Direct buy from that, not using gold, is good. How much will it cost? I don't know. I'm not saying this is great. What I'm saying is one of the bottlenecks that we had with the gold shortage is I would need to buy those mini uniques from the gold store. But if gold is already at a shortage, I'm hesitant to do that. So now if I can use Power Cores, if that's going to be the way to do it, fine. At least there's something to do with it. Hopefully that means I can get all my characters to Gear Tier 20 on a given team. I don't know about you. One of the problems that we had was usually out of 5 characters, I would only be able to get 3 to Gear Tier 20 before the next team came out. So maybe this will bridge that gap. We'll have to see. Gear store added for shop credit purchase. Gear 19 mini uniques. Red Crimson gear, including origin pieces, unique pieces, and catalysts. These changes provide players progressing into later stages of the game with more direct access to high-end gear. What this means is, again, what we're talking about before for mid-game players. If you're still relying on the store stops at teal gear. You can't target the pieces that you need. So this will bridge that gap, getting you to Gear Tier 19 to be able to target, that's what I'm understanding, target all the pieces, including origin pieces and unique pieces. Okay? So you're not just rolling the dice, hoping to get what you need. You can target those for those of us who may not understand why this change is needed. Chapter store. We've introduced purple 4 and 5 ions, Gear Tier 21 and gold to the chapter store on a rotating time limited basis. Buying gold with chapter currency. Okay, we'll just have to see. Primary section, character shards. We'll be introducing a new rotation system to release newer characters into the store. Here's how it'll work. A new character is introduced into rotation about 3 weeks after the initial character offer. That's very similar to how it exists right now. It's usually about a month. Sometimes it can be a little less than 3 weeks. Sometimes it can be a little bit more. The characters added to a pool of 3 total possible characters are going to be sitting in slot number A. This is the new character and the 2 most recent new characters. You have a random chance to get one of these 3. When the next character release arrives, the oldest one in slot A gets pushed out into a permanent guaranteed slot in the store. And this cycle repeats with each new character bumping the oldest out of the random slot A and into a guaranteed slot every 3 weeks or so. For players who purchase early offers, early access remains valuable. For all players, characters will continue to remain available through structured, time-based, guaranteed systems. So we did a video a while back kind of talking about free-to-play, character store, power cores. Got a lot of good information there. That's why I love people when they explain what their process is. I love those comments. Definitely keep those comments coming because people play the game differently. One of the things we found is that even spenders would still use power cores to augment how much of a bump they would get with those characters. So now again, since that's gone, obviously there's no free to play input, but there's also not a spendy input. Another thing that people would use the cores on is to refresh the store to continue to target the selected character. So now that selected character is going to vary. If we don't have the team maxed out, this probably is not bad, right? It's not as bad as it sounds. If, for example, right now, I'm trying to think of who's showing up in the store. New Mutants. So let's just pretend it's the New Mutants. All 3 of the newer members, Cannonball, Wolfsbane, and Warlock, would all be in that rotation. If we're free to play, especially, we don't have all of those characters maxed out. So we're just going to take whatever one shows up, right? You're just going to take what you get. It doesn't matter. They're not all maxed out. Problem is you can't target for them. One of those individuals will go into the permanent. A new character will come in. And as long as we're not maxed out already, it's really not going to matter. And early on, for us as free to play, it won't. We're just going to take whatever's there. It'll be fine. It will be different for other people who have purchased things and potentially could have a maxed out character. That would mean, right? That's fine as well, because that would mean you're targeting something else in the store. So this is an adjustment. It might seem, I get it. It's random. Random always gets weird. It's just to stop us or slow us down as free to play from maxing the character out quickly. That's really what's there. It's still going to be fine. We'll be distributing that power across the team. Here is an example of what's going to happen. High Evolutionary. So he's coming, right? They're going to give him to us. He's coming. And now with 45 shard unlocks, okay, so that's an adjustment too. We'll get the teams unlocked. They're just going to be tiny compared to the spender versions. So he'll come into the store. Like we said, here are Daring Warrior characters. They would be available. The oldest one, in this case, Nova, he's going to get bumped out when High Evolutionary comes in. And then we'll be able to get Nova every day if that's what we want. Before that, he's over here, and it just depends on who pops up. Again, as long as the characters are not maxed out, it doesn't matter for us, right? We don't care that much. The progression path continues into the shop credit system. That's reasonable. That's something we can do. That's something that we can deal with. And it's, again, good to see High Evolutionary here. There was wondering, is he coming? He's coming, right? He's coming. This part I do not think is overwhelmingly concerning for the free-to-play community. Somewhere in that middle spenderish level, they're not going to like this because right here, they don't have control. They had control over with the money portion. We'll have to see how it goes. What's changing with cost? Gear tier 20, gear tier 19, ISO 3 or ISO 8 T3, level 1. So that's blue or purple level 1 and purple crystals. So the cost of those is going down. Is that in the chapter store? I believe so. What are we going to get more of? More Crimson Uniques, Origin Gear, Catalyst, L4 training modules, and Awaken abilities. What does that mean? Have no idea. I like if there's more quantities, we're going to have to see the correlation is going to have to be how much stuff do we get? How much shop credits? How much chapter currency, right? These things don't mean a whole lot until we see what the cost is compared to what we receive, all right? Limited section. What else is changing? Limited section. Character shards are being removed from rotation. In the limited section, I don't know what that means. We just talked about shards. I'm not sure what this means. Unless it's just the adjustment. So I guess character. Oh, my goodness. So I think what we're saying here, I'm not sure. Characters in the chapter store as they exist right now, it looks like that's gone. Am I understanding that correctly? And then you'll just have that rotating character. That's different. That might not be as awesome. But for most of us, if we're end game, we don't want character shards usually. You want gear tier 21, right? You want the power on the character. Obviously, you have to unlock the character before you can put the power on them. But if you're giving me a choice between anything else that they've mentioned so far, you want the thing that's hardest to get, and that's gear tier 21. So whether it's a good or bad thing, at the end of the day, they're at least giving us the thing that we need the most. ISO 8 T3, level 4 and level 5 ions in gold. Once again, how much gold do I need to buy gold in the chapter store to power up my players? Is that required for me to do? These updates are designed to make the chapter store a more targeted source of key progression resources, especially for mid and end game players. The gold update was added based on community feedback to further improve gold access. So community, they are listening. So we got to be careful what we wish for. We can't speak out of anger. I'm just being honest here. Speaking out of anger and frustration, that's going to happen sometimes. But we want to make sure once we get clarity, we get a clear path. So I don't know if this is a good idea. They did it because we asked for it. But is that the right thing to do? Now do I have to decide how to progress? Orbs and power cores. We've heard consistent feedback that low certainty systems, especially those that let players spend without guaranteed progress toward the character they want, can feel frustrating. Throwing money down the drain? Yes, feels bad. We are currently evaluating the role power cores play in new character acquisition. While power cores will continue to be an important currency across the game, we're exploring changes that may reduce their use in directly acquiring new characters during initial release windows. Our goal is to create a system where players can have clearer, more reliable ways to unlock characters, where spending at any level feels more meaningful and rewarding. These changes are still under consideration and may evolve. The game is changing when it comes to its finances. The game is getting cheaper in some ways. If you're 100% free to play, again, right, we're not going to be affected by that, but they want people to, if they're going to spend the money, get something for the money, and that's fine. Scopely, how about a 1-star unlock? You let me know. Community, you let me know. If they gave a 1-star unlock, $10, would you buy it? I might do that. I might do that. He could be teeny weeny character, but at least we can start getting the gear on him. Building a new age for Marvel Strike Force. These changes are part of charting a stronger path forward for Marvel Strike Force on a firmer foundation. They represent a shift toward a more structured, engagement-based, and progression-focused economy. While some systems players are used to are changing, the goal is to create a healthier balance that supports all types of players, from new players just starting out to longtime veterans. We'll be carefully monitoring the rollout, tuning these changes to ensure they are achieving their intended goals. We will share how the new economy is progressing with the full player community. So feel free to ask questions. Make sure you ask questions. Okay? We got to put the pitchforks away. That's always my encouragement, because we need to think, clarity, so we can ask questions and get good answers, right? Good questions, good answers. They have frequently asked questions here. Let's see what's going on. Are you reducing the free rewards overall? Answer, overall, yes. Free rewards are going down. Some free rewards are going down. But a lot of the value is being shifted into rewards you'll earn by actually playing. The goal is for players to have more steady access to resources that help them progress, like gold, training modules, ions, rather than a bunch of rewards that may not matter much for where they are in the game. These are key resources. They are drivers, especially the gold and training modules, for how you power characters up. Got to get those. So as we see the game, we want to know how to get that stuff. And it looks like PvP game modes and interacting with your dailies is how we can guarantee some of that. Question: I used Arena as my main source of power cores. Am I losing out? Answer: power cores are moving out of the arena and into events. So if arena was your main core source, especially if you ranked high, this will probably feel different. But events are built to be more accessible to more players, which means more people should be able to earn cores through participation. If you play a lot, you'll still be able to earn a meaningful amount. We got to find out what to use them for. It may be inputs for some of those legendary events. It may be for refreshing stores. It looks like it's also for buying gear tier 21, which is important. And if they continue to keep on top of this, like if every time a new progression system comes and everything just kind of moves forward, that'll be okay. Why remove power cores from Arena at all? Arena created some pretty uneven results. Some players ended up in empty brackets, right? We heard people say that. I've been at rank 20 and nobody's attacked me. That doesn't happen in my bracket, but we've heard people say that. And they got a lot more out of it. On top of that, the overall power core economy had inflated to a point that wasn't sustainable. Moving rewards around helps us to spread value more fairly and shift Arena rewards towards things that support roster growth, like training modules. Again, my concern is, what if the same thing's happening and I'm in a competitive bracket and somebody else is in a weak bracket? Am I going to be able to power my characters up as an engaged player where there's somebody else who's just sitting parked, who barely plays, and they're going to get rewarded, right? Is there a way to make up that difference if there is one? Is this change worse for the competitive or in-game players? Answer, it's not worse, but it's definitely different. In-game players should see fewer low-impact rewards and more rewards that actually matter at their level, like Gear Tier 21, T4 building materials, purple ions. The trade-off is that some rewards that used to come in passively, like power cores in the arena, are moving into systems where participation matters more. Here we go. Big question here. Big. Will it be harder to get new characters without spending? Not exactly. That is not a yes or a no, but it's the truth. It will be harder to get full teams if you're not spending and not staying engaged with events and stores. Characters will still move into more structured time-based access after their initial release. That point right there is huge. That's a huge point. This was the problem in the past, is we did not have this. There was times when characters would leave from the free-to-play release and wouldn't come back for a year or two. Okay? There were characters that simply were not accessible. So at least if there's a cadence, we have access at some point if we don't get them on the initial free-to-play release. We're also looking at changes to how players go after new characters during those first, very important. Let's get this right. We're also looking at changes to how players go after new characters during those first release windows. That could include relying less on power core spending or on systems that don't give clear guaranteed value. These changes aren't locked yet. We're still testing. So no cores for the time being is how I interpret that. Can I still use power cores to get characters? No. It says we're still evaluating that. We're not seeing that right now. Power cores will still be an important currency across the game, but we're looking at whether they should play a smaller role in directly getting new characters during initial release windows. They don't want you to get them for free, especially if they're going to allow people to be right. There's that trade-off. They're letting people buy in cheaper. So they got to give people a reason to do that. The goal is to give players clearer, more reliable paths to unlock characters and make spending at any level feel more worthwhile. The decision is still up in the air. I think these next ones all tie together, but the main point is there will be a spend. This is how the game always has been. The lines got blurred recently. There's always been a spender team and a free-to-play team, and they're trying to make sure we stay in our lane. Basically, that's what's happening. Why move away from certain orb-based character unlocks? Because a lot of players have told us those systems can feel bad. When you spend and you don't get a specific item, character, or clear progress, don't feel like you're getting great value. It's frustrating. Yes, throwing money down the drain is frustrating. And again, this is a mobile game. We have to consider the fact that some of us have been playing for a really long time. We know what to grab and what to avoid. But there's a lot of people that don't. They come in and they say, oh, here's so-and-so orb, and they buy one, and there's so-and-so's not in the orb. Or the gold isn't in the orb. Training, whatever they were going for, it's not there. Right? So casino-type orbs, hopefully they're getting rid of that. We want character unlocks to feel more transparent so you understand what you're working toward and what your time or spending is actually getting you. We're working through those changes. This might evolve. What does more predictable rewards actually mean? It means you should have a clearer sense of where to go for the stuff you need. Instead of rewards feeling scattered, the goal is for certain parts of the game to more reliably give certain kinds of resources. Nothing wrong with that. I know some people are opposed to that, but I think that's a good change. I need this stuff. Where is it? It's right here. Let me go get it, right? Why move gold into daily objectives? Because daily objectives are one of the few things everyone does. Putting gold there gives players a more reliable daily source of one of the game's biggest bottlenecks, no matter where they are in progression. So we got to make sure we get those dailies done. A lot. I don't know which ones you have to do versus not have to do. Right? Marvel Horde Force, we're skipping stuff. We got to be careful. This goal, if we're playing for free, you want to make sure you get everything you can. I would play by the rules until we can think about a way to maybe maximize things out. I would go by the rules until you figure out another way to maximize things out. I like getting orange gear from daily objectives. Is this a loss? For some players, especially mid-game players, it might feel like one. The trade-off is that gold is useful to basically everyone at almost every stage of the game. Orange gear is still available in other modes and stores, but the idea here is to make daily objective rewards feel more broadly useful every day. Now, we might be laughing at this statement. I like getting orange gear. There is a concern, and again, questions. I have questions. Playing on my endgame account, I've run out of certain early game resources. I've run out of blue, purple, and teal gear on my endgame account. Ran out. Now, obviously, we have this giant backlog of orbs. I can open a couple thousand of them and get what I need. It is still a random thing. You might not get as much you need as you think. The next tier up from that is obviously we can go into the shop credits. Again, endgame account, I got multi-millions of shop credits. I'm fine. The problem is what happens to people who haven't been playing for 8 years and don't have this giant catalog of stuff? What if you've been, I don't know how things look if you've been playing, let's say, for 4 years or 2 years. I start a new account every year, so I can tell you what happens there. But what happens when you run out of that stuff and it's not coming in from somewhere? The low, am I making sense? We think it's all garbage. I don't need purple. I don't need that stuff. Why are they giving me that? Well, what happens when we run out? Right? One of those, something has to equal that out, whether it's the shop credits. Something has to equal that out so we can target that stuff for individuals that don't have years of backlog to draw on. Why remove character shards from the chapter store's limited section? Under the new structure, the shards weren't doing enough to justify the space. We want that space to support more valuable endgame resources like Gear 21 and Purple 5. I will acknowledge that if, for me, the way I played it, my endgame account, I went after the highest gear. New player account, when I wasn't at max level, I went after the character shards because you can't use the gear. So that kind of makes sense, but I know that people use that for other things as well. Boyline, a lot of times, that's how he unlocked his characters. So that's a big change. That's a big change. Again, I think it's to force us to stay in our lane. There's a free-to-play lane and a spender lane. How does this impact free-to-play players? Free-to-play players should see a clearer and more reliable path to key resources through regular play. The highest end rewards will still lean more toward heavy engagement, playing the game, or spending. But the baseline progression path should make more sense. Age of Fear content should still offer meaningful access through things like the limited store and similar systems. I don't know what that means. How do the changes impact paying players, spenders? Paying players will still get the benefits of faster progression and early access. I think that's fine. The goal here is to make the system feel clearer so purchases feel more direct, targeted, and less random. Why are older rewards being removed for endgame players? Because a lot of those rewards have basically turned into noise at that level. We want rewards to feel more relevant, more meaningful. Endgame players will still be able to reach older content when they need to, but the goal is to make the core reward flow feel more focused. I'm never an advocate of going backwards. You want to just go forward. Huge point right here. If you stayed to this point in the video, we're going to talk about something here very important. Very important. What happens if I don't participate heavily in events? Participation is going to matter more than it used to. If you mostly ignore events, if you're not playing the game, you will fall behind more than ever before. I added that word because the Age of Fear progression builds over time. That said, events are meant to be broadly accessible, and even moderate participation should still give you meaningful rewards. I think this is the last page. We'll finish these two out, and then we need to show you something. Is this change final? The direction is set. We'll be watching to see how it performs and listen to feedback. If something isn't working the way it should, we'll adjust. What should I do differently after this update? Focus on consistency. That's just a good life lesson. That's just a life lesson. right? Focus on consistency. What can I do? Get into a pattern. This is what I do every day at this point in time, whatever it is. And that's what all you can do. You don't want to spend 3 hours on the game. You don't have to, but just get into a routine of doing the basic stuff. Get those daily objectives done. See if you can get some events done. It looks like if you got to spend less time on something, maybe it's war. I don't know. Core modes like Arena and Crucible are going to be the most reliable ways to keep progressing. So they're saying if you got to focus on something, you focus on that. We'll have to see. Okay. We're going to switch to the game really quick because we need to look at something. All right. So this is already happening. We talk about the experiment has been going for a while. This is already happening. Eclipse lost and Eclipse found. What did we have to do? Well, we needed to work on our Winter Guard and our champions to a certain degree. And that allowed us to get Eclipse and power Eclipse up. If we didn't invest in either of those teams, if we're skipping teams, right? There's 2 teams at least. But if we're skipping them both, you missed out on a key character, a linchpin character that you need. The Daring Warriors, who we now know are going to be used to unlock Breaker Surfer. Right? You see the progression there? So if we weren't engaged in the event, we're not out of the race, but it is definitely slowing us down. Now, all I can talk about is a free-to-play community because that's what I am. So this is what we mean. This is how you can get ahead. We're not worried about competing with people who are spending thousands of dollars. I'm competing with the other people around me. Okay? That just means I need to play the game. Best buddies, right? We got some stuff. The Pandemonium event did what? It rewarded us through Chad and Eddie, depending on stuff that we've already done in our account. Now, it was free. It was easy. If we played the game before, we were able to do the harder version and get more stuff. The best buddies are being used, again, to perhaps unlock the new legendary character. They got a big buff in war. All right? So we see how this is all working. It's already happening. We did this over here, and it's going to be used for something else over there. Redacted Dimension. If we participated in war, we got our Jeff the Landshark, and we built our retcon, we get more resources. Right? You get to go through that twice, you get more resources. Danger Room. Current Danger Room is featuring the Daring Warriors. They're the newest team. Just like we said, right? Here we go. Full circle. The Daring Warriors. A lot of people skip the team. If you skip the team, then you can't, it's not that you can't play the Danger Room, but you have to rent all the characters. You get 10 rental tokens. There's 5 characters on a team. That means you can do it twice a day. It limits your input. That doesn't mean you can't finish it, but I'm already done on my main account and we're starting to chew through on the baby account. So this stuff is already happening and we're going to see more of it as we go. I know you have questions. I have questions. I submitted a list already. Please stay in touch. You can ask questions here. We'll see if we can get it figured out. Ask questions on the main Marvel Strike Force Discord. Again, I'm always a guy who advocates to be chill. Take a minute. If this is making you angry, chill. Think about what you want to say. Maybe write those questions down and submit good questions so we can get good answers. Get involved with the player voice. I'm trying to tell you right now, they listen to what goes on over there. So if there's only 6 people, I'm not being disrespectful to the voice at all. But if there's only 6 people who actually go over there and participate, guess what? That's the input that they're taking. So you got to put the input on the main Marvel Strike Force Discord. You got to go over there on the player voice if that's your jam. You can come here to any other envoy. That's fine too. That's a way that they listen. There's Facebook groups. There's Discord groups, right? They look at that stuff. They got moderators who it's their job. I met some of them. They got people who it's their job to look at Discord, to look at Reddit, to look at Facebook, right? But you want to pick a spot where people can talk and interact. You want to pick a spot where people can talk and interact. When they said that they're going to be opening up elections for more people to get involved with the player voice, I'm encouraging you right now to do that. When they open that up, to do that, be a reasonable person. And I'm speaking from a free to play perspective here. You got to be a person that's going to stand up for the free to play side. That doesn't mean you're going to be demanding. right? The way I always approached it was I'm trying to understand the system. What are you saying here? What is the progression path? How long is it going to take me? Okay, well, if that person gets this and I don't, how long is it going to take me? Do I miss out, right? How many steps ahead does that cost on the free to play side, right? Don't just go in with the pitchforks and things like that. You got to think ahead. You can't just be mad that I didn't get it here, right? I'm just encouraging. That's the type of people that we need in there. Think ahead. If I don't get this, right? If I don't have the Shadow Conclave, will I be able to unlock Silver Surfer Breaker the first round? The second round? I should have him on the second round. Will they be strong enough, right? First step, will I be able to get the unlock, right? Maybe he's not super strong. I don't care. We'll deal with that later. You have to get him before you can put power on him. So what do I got to do to get him? Am I making sense? That's the way I approach things. Those are the questions that I try to ask. That's the logic I try to follow. I know this video went long. It is very important. Please leave questions and comments below, things that we can reason on, things that we can chew on, things that we can submit to Scopely and see if we can get some answers. If you haven't seen these videos right here, though, please check them out. They're legit.